Welcome to Arsenalen, the Swedish Tankmuseum. And today we have a guest, Lars Gyllenhaal, who is an author. And why are you here?
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm here because I've just written a guide, a travel guide about the World War II sites in Sweden. And in my view, Arsenalen is a perfect starting point for experiencing World War II's sites in Sweden. And I think we can get an idea of all the World War II vehicles by starting with the Strv Model 38 that you have.
So let's take a look.
Yep. Arsenalen has a unique collection of World War II vehicles. And one of my favorites is the Strv Model 38. I had the opportunity to meet a Swede who served on this tank during World War II. He was in the Arctic part of Sweden, where I happen to live nowadays. And he told me that his main task with this vehicle in 1939 was to train the soldiers in the north how to handle tanks, because no one was used to meeting tanks. So he was training infantry how to handle tanks during the Finnish Winter War, while the war was raging on the other side of the border. And one of the temperatures that he experienced was minus 44 degrees. Imagine being inside this vehicle with that kind of temperature, and there's very little to help you survive that kind of cold. So of course they had a lot of accidents and frostbite and so on. It was quite a terrible experience. But during this time he also had a very unique encounter with a Soviet little tank. Let's move and check out the T-37A. So in 1984 I had the opportunity, while attending school, to interview a Swedish veteran, Sven Bloom, who was present when this Soviet tank, or tankette, was handed over from the Finnish army to the Swedish army. He was there at the Finnish-Swedish border when the Finns decided to hand over this very tank, a T-37A, as a gift to the Swedish armed forces. And the reason was that Sweden had been giving away lots and lots of weapons and ammunition to the Finnish army. Actually more than was made public at the time. So they had really some good reasons to be grateful to Sweden. And as a token of their gratitude, this tank was handed over, and Sven Bloom was there. Sven Bloom had just been at the Finnish border during the Finnish Winter War. But in April 1940, Germany invaded Denmark and Norway, and Sven Bloom was sent to southernmost Sweden. And there is a photograph of him taken at Ängelholm, which is quite close to Denmark. And from that time he remembered that there was a general feeling among him and his comrades that they might encounter the Germans soon. They might be fighting the Germans. And this fear was his strongest memory of that time. Sven Bloom perhaps had reasons to fear an encounter with the Germans, because this was the main tank that Sweden had at the outset of World War II. And as you can see, it didn't even have a cannon, it had 2 machine guns. So perhaps we should call it instead a tankette, not a tank. It was small in many respects, but also quite a reliable machine. This was the last type of Swedish tank that my friend Sven Bloom served on. He has been photographed with it by Malmköping in 1943, as you can see on this photograph. And he said about this tank that this was his favorite. It had a rather good gun compared to the previous tanks that he had served on, and it was generally a reliable design. Here I am standing by a German assault gun, a Stormgeschitz II. This vehicle has a connection to Swedish tank design, specifically the S-tank or Strv 103. I interviewed the main designer of that tank, Sven Bloom, and he told me that German assault guns, together with the French Char B1, very much influenced the basic design of the turretless Swedish S-tank. And this Stug III is just one of many German and Allied World War II vehicles in Arsenalen. And together with the Swedish vehicles, make this one of the greatest destinations in Sweden if you're interested of World War II.